Have you ever noticed how loud the voice in your head can be? The one that tells you you're not enough, that you're behind, that your best days are gone. You don't even have to hear it out loud. It whispers in your thoughts. It echoes in your silence. It shows up in your reflection. But baby, if you ever learn to talk back to that voice, your whole life will shift. Because sometimes the most powerful conversation you will ever have won't be with people. It'll be with yourself. What you say to yourself when nobody's watching is what determines what shows up when everybody's looking. If you can speak life for just 3 days, if you can silence the doubt, quiet the fear, and declare truth over your own soul, everything will start to change. Because your words are not just sounds, they're seeds. And when you start speaking like you believe God is still writing your story, heaven starts moving in your direction. Your words are creating your world even when no one is listening. Because whether you realize it or not, every thought you entertain, every sentence you repeat, every belief you reinforce is building something around you. You are the architect of your atmosphere, and your words are the blueprints. What you say sets the temperature for your spirit. What you repeat becomes the rhythm of your reality. You cannot speak defeat and expect victory. You cannot declare fear and walk in faith. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, and many of us have been living in the echo of what we've been saying without even realizing it. You've got to start paying attention to the words you use when you talk to yourself. The I'm tired, the I'm not good enough, the I'll never be able to, the it's too late for me. Those words seem small, but they are seeds. And every seed you plant grows into something that either nourishes your purpose or chokes it. Every time you tell yourself you can't, you're watering limitation. Every time you speak fear, you're feeding failure. Every time you agree with insecurity, you're giving it permission to live rent-free in your mind. But when you start speaking faith, even when you don't feel it, you're building a new world around your life. See, the enemy doesn't have to destroy you. All he has to do is distract your words. He doesn't have to stop your calling. He just has to convince you to curse it with your own tongue. Because if he can get you to agree with fear, you'll stop moving in faith. If he can get you to confess lack, you'll stop believing for abundance. That's why he attacks your mind first, because if he can control your self-talk, he can control your self-perception. And whoever controls how you see yourself controls what you'll reach for. That's why God keeps telling you to renew your mind. He knows that nothing outside of you can change until what's inside of you does. You can switch jobs, change cities, even start over. But if your language stays the same, your life will too. You can't build a new season with the same old sentences. You can't step into a promise while speaking the language of pain. So before God shifts your circumstances, he shifts your sound. He teaches you to speak differently, because transformation doesn't start when things change. It starts when your words do. Your words are creative power. In Genesis, God didn't build the world with his hands. He built it with his mouth. He said, "Let there be," and there was. That same divine DNA lives inside of you. The power to create, to call things that are not as though they were, is already in your spirit. The problem is we've been using divine power for destructive purposes. We've been declaring death over ourselves and wondering why we feel empty. We've been speaking fear and calling it realism, speaking doubt and calling it discernment, speaking defeat and calling it humility. But God is saying, watch your words, because what you say today is shaping what you'll see tomorrow. You can't pray for peace while speaking panic. You can't declare healing while rehearsing hurt. You can't ask for miracles while magnifying misery. Your mouth has to agree with your miracle. Your language has to line up with your faith. You can't speak one thing and expect to live another. If your tongue is prophesying failure, don't be surprised when your life starts following. You've got to speak as if it's already done. You've got to wake up and declare, I am chosen, I am equipped, I am enough, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. There is nothing more powerful than when a woman or man of God learns to talk back to the lies in their head. When you stop accepting every thought as truth and start replacing it with what God says about you, you shift dimensions. You start walking differently, thinking differently, believing differently. Because faith doesn't deny reality, it declares a higher one. It says, yes, I see the storm, but I also see the Savior. Because it says, yes, I've been broken, but I'm still becoming. It says, yes, I failed before, but this time will be different because I've changed my words. You have to become intentional about what you speak. For the next 3 days, I want you to start declaring life over yourself. Not because it's a cute affirmation, but because your soul needs to hear your spirit speak. Start saying, I'm healed even if I still feel hurt. Start saying, I'm strong even if I'm still shaking. Start saying, God is with me even if I can't see him right now. Because your words don't just describe your situation, they direct it. You're either speaking yourself deeper into doubt or pulling yourself out of it. Every word you say is either prophecy or poison. Every statement is either planting purpose or producing pain. And if you've been speaking negatively for years, it's going to take discipline to change your vocabulary. You have to catch yourself mid-sentence and start over. You'll have to correct your tongue before your tongue corrupts your truth. But the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Because transformation starts with repetition. The more you speak faith, the more your mind lines with it. The more you declare victory, the more your spirit believes it. What if I told you that the life you're living right now is the reflection of the language you've been speaking? Look at your relationships, your confidence, your peace. Somewhere in that mix is a pattern of words that either built or broke those things. You said, I'm always stressed, and stress found you. You said, I never have enough, and lack located you. You said, good things don't happen to me, and your life started obeying your command. But now you get to shift that. You get to create new blueprints for your reality. Start saying, I am favored. Start saying, I am becoming. Start saying, I'm not behind. I'm right on time. When you speak life, you start to feel lighter. You start walking differently because your soul finally feels supported. Because that's what words do. They either burden you or build you. And when you choose the right ones, you start aligning with divine flow. You start attracting peace instead of pressure. You start seeing miracles in moments that used to feel meaningless. Because words have vibration and faith has frequency. And when your words match your faith, heaven starts to move. There's something sacred about speaking God's word out loud. It's not just repeating a verse, it's releasing a verdict. It's telling the atmosphere, I'm not agreeing with fear anymore. I'm aligning with faith. Every time you open your mouth to declare truth, chains start breaking internally. Lies start losing their power. Your mind starts detoxing from doubt. Because you can't fight spiritual battles with silent thoughts. You've got to speak. You've got to declare. You've got to give your faith a voice. You can't keep saying you want peace while calling yourself anxious. You can't keep saying you want love while speaking unworthiness. You can't keep saying you want change while repeating the same negative language. Because your life listens to your lips. Your destiny responds to your declarations. Heaven moves when faith is heard. And if you can discipline your mouth for just 3 days, you'll start to notice things shift. You'll start to feel lighter, think clearer, dream bigger, because your words are recalibrating your world. There's a reason God tells us to let the weak say, I am strong, because the moment you speak strength, heaven supplies it. The moment you declare healing, God begins the work. The moment you prophesy peace, angels start aligning. You don't wait until you feel it to say it. You say it until you feel it. Because faith doesn't follow feelings. Feelings follow faith. When you start talking to yourself like you're loved, you stop settling for what doesn't love you back. When you start talking to yourself like you're chosen, you stop chasing people who don't choose you. When you start talking to yourself like you're whole, you stop entertaining what breaks you. Because language creates limits. And if you change your language, you'll change your level. The 3 days, speak differently. Wake up and say, I am enough. I am loved. I am walking in purpose. I am becoming who God always saw. Before you sleep, say, everything is working for my good. I am covered. I am growing. I am free. Watch what happens. Watch how peace starts replacing panic. Watch how opportunities start finding you. Watch how your relationships shift and your atmosphere changes. Because your words have been waiting for your agreement. You've been surviving on borrowed language, on what people said about you, on what pain taught you to believe. But now it's time to reclaim your narrative. It's time to say what God says about you. Because when your mouth lines up with His word, your life lines up with His will. When you start declaring, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, your posture changes. When you start saying, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, your confidence rises. When you start affirming all things work together for my good, even your trials begin to feel like training. You have authority over your atmosphere. You can shift it with your sound. You can silence anxiety by speaking scripture. You can destroy doubt by declaring destiny. You can rebuild confidence by repeating truth. The question is, what are you saying? Because the conversation you have with yourself determines the course you take in life. And if you can master your language for just 3 days, if you can choose faith over fear, truth over trauma, power over pity, everything will change. For 3 days, talk to yourself like you're becoming the version of you that God already sees. For 3 days, refuse to curse your progress with negative words. For 3 days, bless your journey, bless your name, bless your process, because what you bless grows. And as you speak, heaven will begin to shift things around you. Doors will open that used to resist you. Ideas will awaken that used to intimidate you. Peace will flow in places that used to drain you, because your words aren't just sounds. They are supernatural tools of creation. And maybe that's all God's been waiting for. Not for you to do more, not for you to prove more, but for you to speak differently, to stop rehearsing defeat and start releasing destiny. Because your miracle is not in your movement, it's in your mouth. If you can talk to yourself like heaven is listening, everything around you will start listening too. What you speak to yourself determines what you expect from life. Because every word that leaves your mouth becomes the framework for your faith. You can only reach for what you believe you deserve. And belief isn't just built by what people tell you. It's built by what you tell yourself. If your inner dialogue is full of doubt, you'll unconsciously limit what you allow yourself to receive. But if your inner conversation is full of confidence, gratitude, and faith, you'll start to expect more from life because you finally expect more from God. The words you speak to yourself are setting the thermostat of your life, deciding how high you rise, how far you go, and how deeply you believe that you are worthy of good things. The truth is, expectation is not a feeling. It's a reflection of identity. You expect what you think you are worthy of. So if deep down you believe you're broken, unqualified, or overlooked, you'll never reach for the blessings that are already within your reach. You'll pray for big things while expecting small ones. You'll talk about miracles, but prepare for disappointment. But when you start speaking differently to yourself, when you say, I am loved, I am chosen, I am worthy of the life God promised me, you raise your internal standard. You stop expecting rejection and you start expecting reward. You stop waiting for loss and you start waiting for overflow. Because your expectation sets the stage for manifestation. Most people don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they lack expectation. They don't believe they're capable of what God has called them to. They sabotage their blessings with small thinking. They walk into rooms prepared for rejection instead of reception. That's why you have to train your tongue to agree with faith, not fear, because fear shrinks your world, but faith expands it. Fear says, I can't handle this. Faith says, I was built for this. Fear says, it's too late. Faith says, it's right on time. Fear says, I've failed too much. Faith says, God still has a plan for me. And every time you choose to speak faith over fear, you're retraining your mind to expect miracles instead of misfortune. Expectation is the bridge between prayer and promise. You can pray for peace all you want, but if you expect chaos, you'll keep finding it. You can ask for love, but if you expect rejection, you'll sabotage relationships. You can declare abundance, but if you expect lack, you'll subconsciously block it. The mind will always align with the narrative you've been feeding it. That's why the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Because your life cannot exceed the level of your internal expectation. You can live beyond what you believe about yourself. That's why it's so important to pay attention to your self-talk. The things you say when no one's listening are the seeds that grow when everyone's watching. You can't expect greatness while speaking mediocrity. You can't expect peace while speaking panic. You can't expect joy while repeating pain. Your tongue is prophetic. It's predicting the direction of your destiny every single day. That's why God is calling you to change your language, because your expectation needs a new vocabulary. You can't say maybe God will and still expect to walk in God already has. You can't live in promise if your mouth is still in the past. Every day you are either affirming or assassinating your destiny. You are either speaking yourself into alignment or out of assignment. Some of you have been praying for open doors, but your words have been building walls. You've been praying for promotion while saying, I'm not ready. You've been asking for love while saying, all men are the same. You've been begging for peace while saying, my life is always hard. And God is saying, I can't give you what you keep rejecting with your words, because you can't receive what you won't believe, and you won't believe it until you start speaking it. If you change your language, you'll change your expectation. And when you change your expectation, you change your experience. Because expectation is energy. It's the spiritual magnet that pulls things into your life. When you expect pain, pain finds you. When you expect favor, favor follows you. When you expect loss, life gives you lessons. But when you expect God to show up, He always does. That's the secret to shifting your season. Speak like it's already happening and expect like it's already yours. You got to learn to prophesy over your own life. You don't need a preacher to remind you who you are. You need to start speaking to yourself the way God speaks about you. Every morning, open your mouth and set your expectation. Today I will walk in peace. Today I will attract favor. Today I will see God's hand in my life. When you do that, you're not just making positive statements. You're setting divine expectation. You're aligning your mouth with heaven's plan. And let me tell you something, life will always rise to meet your level of expectation. If you expect nothing, you'll see nothing. If you expect struggle, you'll live in it. But if you expect blessing, your mind starts looking for it. You'll begin to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You'll start noticing God's fingerprints on the ordinary, because expectation opens your eyes to evidence. It changes how you interpret everything that happens around you. When you expect good things, you stop living in survival mode. You stop preparing for disaster and start preparing for destiny. You stop assuming people will leave and start expecting God to send the right ones. You stop waking up anxious about the day and start waking up grateful for it. Because the language of expectation is gratitude. Every time you thank God in advance, you're saying, I trust you enough to act like it's already done. It's not arrogance to expect God's best. It's agreement. You're not commanding Him. You're aligning with Him. You're saying, God, I believe you enough to prepare for what you promised. That's why the woman with the issue of blood was healed, because she said to herself, if I can just touch the hem of His garment, I will be made whole. She didn't wait for someone else to speak it over her. She spoke it to herself. And that internal declaration created external manifestation. That's what happens when you change how you talk to yourself. You change what you expect, and what you expect starts showing up. You can't keep expecting pain and calling it protection. You can't keep expecting disappointment and calling it discernment. That's not wisdom. That's woundedness. Real wisdom says, I've learned from the past, but I still believe in the future. It says, I've been hurt, but I still expect healing. It says, I've been delayed, but I still expect destiny. Because expectation is not naive, it's necessary. You can't move forward in faith if you keep expecting failure. Here's the truth. The way you talk to yourself when life gets hard reveals what you really expect. When doors close, do you say, I guess I wasn't meant for this? Or do you say, God's protecting me from something smaller? When people walk away, do you say, I'm unworthy? Or do you say, God's making room for better connections? Your inner dialogue determines your direction. You can't expect elevation while speaking limitation. You can't expect favor while confessing fear. You've got to train your spirit to speak expectation even when your situation doesn't agree yet. Every time you open your mouth, you are sending an instruction to the universe, to heaven, to your own soul. You are giving permission for something to move. That's why you can't afford careless speech. Your words are setting things in motion. So if you start your morning saying, this is going to be a bad day, you've already programmed your day to obey you. But if you wake up and say, this is the day the Lord has made, I will rejoice and be glad in it. You've shifted the atmosphere before anything even happens. Expectation will change how you pray. You'll stop begging and start believing. You'll stop pleading for miracles and start positioning yourself for them. Because faith without expectation is just empty words. You've got to believe that what you say has weight, that your prayers have power, that your words have worth. God responds to expectation. He looks for people who believe so boldly that they start preparing before the promise arrives. And maybe that's why nothing's been changing. You've been praying for transformation while expecting the same old pattern. You've been saying you want peace while preparing for panic. But the moment you shift your self-talk, the moment you start speaking like you trust him, everything begins to align. Because God won't give you what you don't expect to receive. He can't fill hands that aren't open. Expectation opens your heart. It creates space for blessing. So for the next 3 days, talk to yourself like you're expecting breakthrough. Speak to your mind like it's listening. Tell your soul, we're not settling anymore. Tell your spirit, we're rising. Tell your fear, you've had enough of my attention. Speak like someone who's convinced that miracles are possible. Speak like someone who knows God's not finished yet, because expectation is not about hype, it's about hope. And hope is what keeps heaven moving in your direction. You have to understand that the words you speak to yourself become the walls or the windows of your future. They either block light or let it in. If you say it'll never happen for me, you've built a wall. But if you say, I know God is still working, you've opened a window. And God's light can only shine through an open window. So open your mouth, open your faith, open your expectation. Because when you talk to yourself with faith, you don't just change your words, you change your world. If you change your language, you'll change your level. Because your language is not just communication, it's vibration, direction, and declaration. The words you speak are not random sounds, they are spiritual codes that shape what comes towards you and what moves away from you. You can't rise above the level of your language, and you can't step into a new dimension while speaking the dialect of your dysfunction. Because you can't offer the dialect of your dysfunction. Every new level in life demands a new language. If you want peace, you can't keep speaking panic. If you want breakthrough, you can't keep talking brokenness. If you want abundance, you can't keep repeating lack. Because what you speak is what you summon. Your words are your atmosphere. Before you ever step into a room, your language prepares the environment for what will live there. When your words are full of worry, everything you build carries tension. When your words are full of faith, everything around you begins to align with that frequency. God designed language as a creative force, not just a tool of expression. When he said, let there be light, light obeyed. And when he breathed his spirit into you, he gave you that same creative ability. That means you don't just speak about your world, you speak your world into existence. But too often we're fluent in the language of limitation. We've mastered the dialect of doubt. We know how to articulate fear better than we know how to affirm faith. We say, I'm trying instead of I'm growing. We say, I'm waiting for things to change instead of change is already happening in me. We say, this always happens to me instead of this is teaching me something new. The problem isn't that you're stuck. The problem is that your language hasn't graduated. You're still using old vocabulary to describe a new version of yourself. There's a reason why God confused the language at the Tower of Babel, because when people speak the same thing, they start building something powerful. The same principle applies spiritually. When your words align with heaven's words, your world starts reflecting heaven's will. But when your words align with fear, your world starts reflecting that fear. You can't speak bondage and expect freedom. You can't confess defeat and expect deliverance. You can't curse yourself and expect blessings to find you. Your life will always rise or fall to the level of your language. Changing your language isn't just about speaking positively, it's about speaking prophetically. It's about using your words to declare what doesn't yet exist. It's about aligning your mouth with your mission and letting your sound match your season. Because your next level won't come through effort alone. It will come through expression. You can't receive what you don't declare. You can't occupy what you won't name. Every promise God gives requires participation from your mouth. That's why he told Ezekiel to speak to the dry bones. Because even though the bones were dead, there was still a word that could resurrect them. Your words carry resurrection power. You've been asking God for elevation, but he's been waiting for your vocabulary to evolve. You've been saying, God, take me higher, but still speaking like someone tied to survival. You keep calling yourself stuck, broke, alone, behind, and heaven is saying, I can't manifest that, because your words are either invitations or interruptions. They either invite God's promises or interrupt his process. If you keep labeling yourself with yesterday's pain, you'll keep living in yesterday's patterns. But when you start calling yourself healed, favored, and chosen, even when it doesn't look like it, you shift dimensions. Changing your language starts internally. It's not just about what you say out loud, it's about what you say inside. The conversation in your head sets the pace for your external reality. That's why the enemy wants your inner dialogue to stay dark. He knows if he can control your internal language, he can keep you stuck at a lower level. Because internal language becomes external imitation. But when you start speaking differently to yourself, your thoughts start taking shape. The words you think become the energy you carry, and the energy you carry becomes the experience you live. You can't attract peace with words of panic. You can't live in power while speaking weakness. You can't claim favor while complaining. You can't move into abundance while constantly declaring scarcity. You can't say, I'm tired of being overlooked and expect to be elevated. Your mouth is your steering wheel. Where it turns, your life follows. You will never go higher than your language allows. Think about it. Even Jesus used language to activate miracles. He didn't touch Lazarus first. He called him by name. He didn't fight the storm. He spoke to it. He didn't argue with demons. He commanded them to leave. Because when you understand authority, you stop negotiating with chaos. You start naming it. You don't just speak about your life, you speak into it. And that's the difference between talking and transforming. There's a shift that happens when you stop using your words as commentary and start using them as commands. Commentary describes what is, command declares what will be. Commentary keeps you stuck in the present. Command pulls you into the prophetic. Commentary focuses on facts. Command speaks from faith. You can't comment your way out of chaos. You have to command peace into it. You can't narrate your trauma. You have to name your transformation. The moment you start commanding your atmosphere with filled words, everything around you begins to obey. But here's the truth. Changing your language will cost you comfort. You'll have to stop saying the phrases that people around you still live by. You'll sound strange to the ones who are still speaking fear. They'll say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because when your vocabulary changes, your vibration does too. When your language rises, your level follows. You'll lose conversations that no longer serve your calling. You'll outgrow the kind of talk that keeps you people in cycles. You'll find yourself craving words that build, not break, because your spirit knows the sound of where it's going. Changing your language means taking accountability for your atmosphere. It means you stop blaming circumstances and start building sentences that create solutions. It means you stop saying, I can't do this, and start saying, I can do all things through Christ. It means you stop saying, I'm so unlucky, and start saying, I'm highly favored. It means you stop saying, I'm overwhelmed, and start saying, I'm being stretched for greater. Because even if you don't feel it yet, your spirit starts to align the moment your language shifts. Your words are like spiritual contracts. You sign agreements with what you say. Every I am statement is a declaration of identity. Every time you say, I am tired, I am broke, I am unlovable, you're signing an agreement with a lie. But when you start saying, I am enough, I am growing, I am becoming, you're signing an agreement with destiny. You're choosing to live in divine truth instead of temporary circumstance. Because whatever follows I am eventually finds you. Language doesn't just describe your reality, it attracts it. When you say nothing ever works out for me, you start looking for evidence to prove that. But when you say everything is working for my good, your mind starts finding proof of that instead. You see what you speak, you experience what you expect, your brain is wired to confirm your confession. That's why positive self-talk isn't just emotional, it's neurological, it's spiritual, it's divine alignment in motion. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they've built altars with their words. They keep worshiping defeat with repetition. They keep revisiting their past with sentences that should have expired long ago. I always attract the wrong people. I can never catch a break. I'm too old for this. These are altars to limitation. You've got to tear them down with truth. You've got to start building new altars with declarations that align with your destiny. I attract divine connections. I walk in consistent favor. My age is not a barrier, it's a badge of grace. When you speak like that, you're not denying reality. You're redefining it. Changing your language doesn't mean pretending everything's perfect. It means refusing to glorify what's broken. It means you acknowledge the pain, but still declare the promise. It means you feel the fear, but still speak faith. It means you stop magnifying the mountain and start magnifying the maker. Because the more you talk about what hurts, the more power it has. But the moment you start declaring hope, you shift the balance. You strip fear of its fuel and replace it with faith. When you change your language, your perspective changes. You start noticing blessings in places you used to overlook. You start speaking gratitude instead of grumbling. You start thanking God in advance instead of questioning Him in delay. Gratitude is the language of growth. Every thank you plants a seed that multiplies favor. The more grateful you sound, the more grace you attract. Because heaven responds to appreciation faster than complaint. Language is currency in the kingdom. The words you release determine the wealth you receive. Complaining is bankruptcy. Faith is investment. Worship is multiplication. Every sentence you speak is either a withdrawal or a deposit. Every conversation is either wealth building or energy draining. If you keep overdrafting your spirit with negative speech, your faith account will run dry. But if you start depositing hope, peace, and praise, you'll live in overflow. You can't expect elevation while speaking in the language of excuses. Every excuse you make is a declaration of limitation. You say, I don't have time, but what you mean is, I don't believe I can make it happen. You say, I'm not ready, but what you mean is, I'm scared to fail. You say, I don't have the resources, but what you mean is,